What's up, everyone? It's me again, and today I'm going to be going through the response of the video that I made last time. I was originally going to go through the original document that I was making, parts on, but I learned when I asked the dude that it's actually a compilation of different points from Aajonus.net. That's another thing. I've been mispronouncing his name. It's not Aajonus, it's Aajonus. So after going through, and I wrote some notes as well. Today just happens to be the day in which I can finally sit down and make this video. But I've been reading the document over the days and I wrote some notes, and I'm going to change my stance. I'm going to say that, and I'm going to clarify more clearly. This was a good piece. This was a good rebuttal. These were good arguments against the claims that I made. And I'm going to go specifically into what changed my mind. But I do believe that eating meat raw is the most optimal way of eating. It is the most optimal thing you can do. I think that eating cooked meat can lead to problems throughout the years after long-term consumption. However, I'm not changing my stance on Aajonus, and these are purely based on the claims that have been recently made, not from anything that I've seen Aajonus talk about. I haven't even seen him talk about this in his Q&A lectures, and I sure as hell haven't seen anything of this sort from his studies, which is what really matters when it comes to discussing everything that we're doing right now. So, yeah, I'm going to go through the document that I was sent, the response. Before that, though, I would like to check this comment that I was given in my video. I saw that somebody commented, but I'm not sure what the heck it means. Whoops. So if we go here, let's go into this, and I'm just gonna blindly read it. So RE, I don't know what that means. Cauterization. You might not change isotopes via heating, but there is structural things that happen. What? Okay, organic components are released from minerals, and inorganic crystals will bond/accumulate. What? Okay, should I even be reading this? This just sounds like jargon. What do you mean organic components are released from minerals? That says a whole lot of nothing. Organic. Okay. The whole complex of minerals/organic molecules will break down. Okay, which ones specifically? And that's not an argument for them being worse. You have to be specific. And minerals will dissolve differently in solutions. Also, leading to your enzymes, biological particles are deactivated. Yeah, they're denatured, but you have to explain why that's a bad thing. So to say, there's nothing structural going on with cauterization of foods clubs. Okay, I don't know what foods clubs is, but when we're saying that there's nothing structural going on with cauterization, I'm not saying that there's nothing going on when you heat meat. There obviously is a lot going on, structurally speaking. It's just, why use the word cauterization? And what do you mean it cauterizes minerals? It's jargon. It's not any actual scientific terminology. Mineral bonds is inaccurate. Okay, I don't know what. I don't know what's being said here. If I had more time, I would talk about the rest of your points. Let's deal with them one at a time. Also, for decades, I've been on this diet, which has crazy claims. Wild, but I've seen back to. No, they're not. They're not really crazy claims. They're bounded in science, and you should always look for the scientific explanation. If it weren't for the scientific explanations and mechanisms and data, I would not be consuming raw meat. They're not. It's just when you make crazy claims, you have to substantiate them with proper points and research. If you don't do that, then they're going to remain crazy claims, and they won't actually be just the standard diet or the standard optimal human diet. So I don't agree with this. I don't understand why whoever this person is continues to use the word cauterize. But okay, it's it's making a claim that I never made, or no, it's poking at a claim that I never made, and it's that cooking rearranges the structure of certain molecules. It's like, obviously, I never said it didn't. I don't understand what the point of saying cauterizing minerals is, and that's what Aajonus preaches, which is dumbfounded. So this is the document that I was sent, and this is the response. This is the rebuttal, and I'm going to just go through it one by one, and I'm gonna get to the part that really shook things up for me, and that made me realize maybe there is no reason to cook it. I think long term you can still do it with boiling meat. The points that were made here on boiling meat, I don't think hold up to the points that are being made about grilling and dry heating meat. But I'll explain why in a second. So, first thing we have is introduction to thermokinetics and animal tissue. Okay. Also, please bear with me here. For some reason, for the next hour, I kept saying HACs instead of HCAs. It's really stupid, but yeah, just keep that in mind. So yeah, first we have the carcinogens, heterocyclic, overall, just HACs. These are creatine binding with amino acids. We see here the usual amounts for which they increase. And we see here the amount that is usually suggested per day. Although I don't really understand where they get this number. But yeah, it's still very... Okay, yeah. 12 UGs is definitely exceeding what the original amount of HACs would usually be. So again, this is what I'm saying is the actual... And I never denied this point. Yes, HACs and all carcinogens are something that you need to worry about when and if you're cooking meat, right? So we got this part out of the way. Although I did say in the video that these HACs were handled by the liver, I would like to know where this comes from. That only 1.5 micrograms per day is what's acceptable or tolerable by the body. I would have to know where this number comes from, because okay, yeah, doing well done grilled chicken probably exceeds the amount of HACs that are acceptable. However, I would like to know what is acceptable, and also whether that includes all forms of cooking meat. Then we have the polycyclic aromatic hydrocarbons. This is, you explain what the mechanisms are, you explain what they are, and again, that's why I'm not sure if I mentioned this in my previous video, but yeah, you do not want to cook over charcoal. And I guess that's kind of a problem if you're doing the whole primal thing, because you'd be like grilling and stuff, and you'd be like, out in nature putting meat on top of charcoal itself. That's not optimal because you are increasing the amount of pHs. So yeah, but again, what I was advocating was main reason why people would want to cook meat, specifically boil cooked meat or boil meat in general, is for the reasons of digestibility. Whether the person that's trying to increase their digestibility by cooking meat is somebody that suffers from low stomach acid. So we're gonna get into that in a second. And then we have the Maillard reactions, AGEs. Also depends on how much you cook it. Dry meat cooking increases toxic load tenfold to 100-fold. Yeah, this is all correct. I would just question where they get their number for what is acceptable and what is not. What does it say about the PAHs? The European Food Safety Authorities explicitly caps the maximum legal limit of benzoapyrin in commercial smoked meats. Okay, at 5 UGs. Damn, that's a lot. And how much did it say for the HACs or HCAs? Uh, yeah, this one doesn't explain what. But again, and this one's a little bit harder and trickier because everyone eats cooked meat, right? The amount of people that eat meat raw are very, very low. In the average like population, the amount of people that eat raw meat, like you and I, it's very, very low. So they would be eating and destroying their antioxidant system by a lot if this were true, saying that 1.5 micrograms is the daily recommend or the daily tolerable amount. I'm curious about this one specifically for the HCAs. But again, boiled stewed beef does not increase this by it does not tenfold it, nor does it 100-fold it. Yeah, moist meat severely limits glycation. Exactly. Yeah. So it's not the worst. We can get into the boiled meat, the boiled and stewed meat later. Then we've got the next thing, which is lipid peroxidization. Structural integrity of cell membranes for polyunsaturated fatty acids. So this would be mainly for like pork and chicken. And if we're all of these Instagram people that eat on top of wooden cutting boards with their kiwis and all this stuff, that's still not optimal. And cook their meat 90% of the times, it's cooked beef, right? It's cooked cow meat, right? Which is related to our ancestral diet, which was killing and hunting buffaloes. Um, Nobody eats elephant meat, which is the closest relative to mammoths, which is what we used to hunt. But it does not mean that saturated fats can't be prone to lipid peroxidization. It's just it's far lower. It's much lower because they're not double bonded. Even mono unsaturated fats have a significantly lower amount of lipid peroxidation as opposed to these PUFAs. Acrylamides. I don't think we have to go into acrylamides because these are mainly for carbohydrates. Yeah, unbreaded meat does not significantly for acrylamide. I think everyone who's on a carnivore diet, obviously, again, I'm telling you, carnivore is the most optimal. Yeah, who in the carnivore diet that's eating on wooden boards, trying to have this aesthetic look for their Instagram story, is gonna add sweet barbecue sauce or deep frying the meat in flour? Or eating deep fried potato. Who eats potato chips or fries? Who's on the carnivore diet? Who is doing that? Okay, then we go on to number 3, hepatic sustainability. The liver can just take care of it. So yeah, this was a question that I had in my previous video. The enzymes actually bioactivates HCAs. What? It converts relatively inert HCAs into N-hydroxyacrylamide derivatives. These new metabolites are wildly unstable and exponentially more reactive and genotoxic than the original burnt meat crust. What the heck? Is this true? Glutathione exhaustion, phase 2 metabolism. To stop these hyperreactive bioactivated toxins from destroying your organs, your liver must instantly deploy phase 2 detoxification. Your liver, okay, so you're saying it depletes your liver's antioxidant system. That's what I'm asking. How much? Okay, they travel the colon, prostate, and breast tissue where they physically bind directly to human DNA. This creates DNA abducts, physical blockages on the DNA strand that cause cellular mutations and initiate tumor growth. Not all the time, but the more you do it, the more you're rolling the dice. Again, these are the long-term effects that I was talking about. I'm not sure if this first phase 1 CYP1A2 bioactivation. I've never heard of this before. First off, you create AGEs in your system regardless of whether you eat meat cooked or raw. You're still going to create them. You're still going to have them. You need the liver's antioxidant system, and the metabolic load that it takes is significantly higher than the amount of carcinogens that enter your system. So I'd have to look more into this specific process right here. That says that these are exponentially more reactive and genotoxic than the original burnt meat crust. Does this go into moderately consuming boiled or sous vide meat that doesn't have a crust, that doesn't have, you know, instant fat oxidation, peroxidation from, cooking within its own fats and having that burnt? The linchpin would be this, and understanding this better. So I think this is what I'm gonna have to look into. Then we have section 2, cooked versus raw meat protein. In this section, I go over your claim that meat. I think this was the one that probably made the most sense to me and why I'm accepting more and more your arguments. So let's go into number 1. Okay, mainstream fitness culture frequently claims that cooking meat unlocks its protein predigested. No, not predigested. Or increases its bioavailability. Yes. While mild meat, rare meat, can increase the speed of initial gastric breakdown, this might be the one thing that is a little bit tricky here, because it's not about the speed. It's about it's never about the speed. It's about effort, right? Speed simply indicates effort, which is why for a normal human being, and especially in the studies that were linked here or that were referenced here, when it comes to the DIAAS allele digestibility tests, we see that raw meat does have pretty much the same digestibility um amounts, right, or percentage as boiled meat, right? The problem with this is it's not just speed, it's the effectiveness, the effort, which means somebody who has low stomach acid contents, they're not just going to have, you know, it's not just that they're going to have slower digestive times, it's that they're going to have to take a lot more effort. So speed means something. You can't just say speed and then say that that's it. You take more effort. If the speed is higher, it's specifically because it takes less effort for your stomach acids, the enzymes that you use to break down food, can actually, do that. So, okay, the first thing here is the water displacement illusion. This is not this is not a claim I ever made, and I'm not sure who says this. I've never heard this claim before, and it's that the illusion shows higher protein percentage or density when in reality it's just a loss of water. And like I get that, but there was never any claims that protein increases. As a matter of fact, in my previous video, I said that protein can actually decrease slightly due to the Maillard reactions. So this this is not really something I claimed or something that we need to worry about. Protein quality, true allele digestibility. Okay, this is where it gets interesting to me. Note on methodology: traditional fecal digestibility tests are highly inaccurate because of putrefactive bacteria in the colon and the undigested meat proteins. Modern um, gastroenterology uses true allele digestibility measures in pigs, which have identical gastrointestinal tract humans. Not true. It's not identical, but it's very very similar. To see what is absorbed in the end of the small intestines before it hits the colon. So the gold stand and one that's, since it's being controlled with on animals, it's actually an outcome study that is of good faith, right? That has highly controlled variables. So the gold standard for measuring human protein absorptions is the digestive indispensable amino acid score. And then the Hodgkinson Japanese or Korean, I'm not sure what this is from, Journal of Nutrition measured the exact DIAAS, and we see that raw meat has the same absorption rate as boiled beef. 70 or 97 to 99%. Now, the question would be again, which one takes more effort? Mechanistically, we know that we have to denature enzymes regardless of whether it be with heat or with our stomach pH acidity. Which one is more effective? That's something that is not disclosed or not concluded with this data right here. Now we go down and we see that okay, grilling, roasting, and pan frying actually can decrease it, and that's due to the Maillard reactions that actually cause structural differences in the amino acids. But you know what? I'm not gonna lie. It surprised me to see raw meat at the same level as boiled meat. Very interesting. And I think it was here that I was like, okay, you know what? You're still absorbing the same amount. There's no higher availability necessarily for a normal healthy human, but somebody who has lower stomach acids, would they see the same numbers that are being shown here? The optimal way of eating that completely takes the carcinogens out of the question and completely takes out all the losses of certain minerals and certain vitamins. Yeah, the raw meat is far superior and part of the optimal human diet. It is the optimal way of eating, and I'm admitting that right now. This is when I realized that. So the total quantity of absorbed amino acids, raw meat boiled yields, blah blah blah. Yes, okay. High temperature dry cooking literally destroys nearly 20% of the meat's biological protein value. Okay. Yeah, fair enough. Fair enough. Okay, number 4, the destruction of amino acids. Why does grilled meat fail? So again, it's the Maillard reaction that changes the. But like, come on, I explained all this previously. Like I saw this experiment with rats, and I thought maybe this could help your case, and I think it did. I think it did because look, you're pretty much explaining the exact same mechanisms that were found in that study. The Maillard reaction makes it number one physically more difficult for pepsin to reach the amino acids of certain peptides, and specifically lysine changes its structure, its molecular structure, via the Maillard reactions. So yeah, I'm wondering what you mean by the lysine becomes up to 40% biologically unavailable. Says who? The differences in rats that we saw were not this drastic. Okay, protein cross-linking and oxidation, the plastic effect. While mild heat simply unfolds proteins and denature, extreme heat forces the denatured meats to undergo natural oxidative aggregation, superoxide. Okay, but again, my gosh, this is extreme heat, and this is yeah. Okay, so this is also what I had said, that it was physically harder for pepsin to reach some of these amino acids. It's just when it gets to this level, again, it's like if you're cooking your meat until it tastes like a burnt tire, then this is when you get this effect. Like these things can also be observed physically, right? So, yeah, this whole inaccessibility, this physical inaccessibility is I would like to know exactly how much. And is it just the crust or is it the entire chunk of meat that you'd be eating? Then number 5 is something that you didn't mention in your first document, but it makes sense. It makes complete sense. Again, though, it happens with mostly grilled, dry heated meat. which is what you don't want. And probably, again, this is all what leads to those non-binary colon cancer studies that show red meat increases colon cancer. But it's like all of those people are eating goy slop. McDonald's that has these things, this meat deep fried to absolute hell. And these are the mechanisms explaining it. Okay, you know what? Fair to you. Here's another point for you, and another reason for why I agree with your points as well. Although, to be fair, 10 to 20% is an exaggeration. It's more like 5 to 10%. But still, like, over the years, it's this kills you, you know. What else can I say? Yeah, I mean, this is a good point. Summary of the paradox: raw meat yields 100% unmutated pristine amino acids. Temporarily speeds up initial stomach breakdown, but permanently locks away. Again, depends. Are you letting Maillard reactions destroy the meat, and where? In the crust or in the juicy center, which makes up of like the majority of the meat that you'd be consuming anyways. I don't know what primal likes to eat burnt tires of meat. Section 3, slightly cooked meat versus raw meat. Given the previous section, it would be radical to assume, not really radical, I don't know, like you're assuming that it would be radical. That slightly cooked meat is still better than raw meat for protein digestibility and absorption. Well, not really, because mechanistically, you have the reasons. Do we have any outcome studies on humans? Do we have any DIAS studies on humans? No, we don't. But okay, and does your DIAS study show how effective, or the difference in effectiveness and effort there is when boiling or eating meat raw in pigs? It does not. The claim that cooked meat is broken down and the proteins are untangled, yielding better digestion, and the claim that cooked meat requires less digestive force from the body. Okay, this is what I want to see. Let's see this. Introduction to the thermodynamic threshold at 40C. Mainstream nutrition universally classifies mildly cooked meat, boiled, poached, or steamed, as nutritionally equivalent to raw meat. Because these methods utilize moist heat that cannot exceed 100C. They successfully prevent the highly carcinogenic Maillard reactions, heterocyclic amines, and all the other carcinogens. However, avoiding DNA mutating toxic ash does not mean the meat remains biologically native. Applying up to 100C of thermokinetic energy physically alters the molecular geometry of the proteins, oxidize pristine lipids. Does it? Okay, but the pH of your stomach acid does it either ways. Degrades iron bioavailability. No, it does not. And irrevocably shatters heat labial vitamins. Okay, yes, true. The vitamins is a problem. The vitamin stuff is a problem. But whether it alters the molecular geometry of proteins, so does your pH and your stomach acids. That's my question. What is different between using heat and your pH acid? Like, that's what I'm not understanding.
So, for example, yesterday I was working at the hotel that I work at, and for lunch I ate a bunch of raw meat that I brought from home, and for dinner I didn't bring anything, so I had to choose something from the hotel. There was some fancy ass stuff. One of them was ceviche, right? So it was sort of semi raw shrimp that was being, you know, sort of cooked with like lemon acid or whatever. The problem was it had a bunch of, green sauces and vegetables. After having detoxed for so long and not eating a single, evil, toxic green vegetable in so long, I ended up puking almost immediately. The point is, when I looked at the contents of the puke, the raw meat from lunch was there, but it wasn't soft. It looked identical as to if you were to boil it. So it was colorless, right? It was gray, it was no longer squishy, it was actually hard and firm. So the question is, what difference does it make if we're talking about the structural changes of amino acids and of entire protein denaturing? No, heme iron does not become less bioavailable. The only thing that you would really be observing that garners the need to stay away from cooking meat is the loss of water soluble vitamins. The loss of those micronutrients that can be quite significant, that would be the main problem. But other than that, all of this just sounds like a bunch of jargon that's being, misused.
And according to Cutting Edge 2024 research mutates interspecies genetic signaling. This part lost me absolutely. This is what I don't agree with. Protein biophysics, native hydration versus hydrophobic coagulation. While true allele digestibility tests show that the total amount of protein eventually absorbed from boiled meat is roughly equal to raw meat, modern gastroenterology reveals a massive difference in gastric effort and kinetics required to achieve that absorption. Okay, what is it? The native state of raw meat and muscle meat tissue proteins, actin, myosin, collagen exist in a highly organized, hydrated, three-dimensional gel matrix. Because the tissue has not been thermally shocked, the proteins remain physically soft, geometrically open, and suspended in interstellar water. When this native matrix enters the stomach, human gastric juice, which is full of which is full of HC1 and pepsin, easily permeates the entire structure. Okay, do you what is the how does it permeate easily the entire structure? If cartilage and connective tissue is softened when heated, how can you make this claim that peptide bonds simultaneously cross the tissue with minimal mechanical effort? This part I like. Should I look into this more? Thermal coagulation, mildly cooked meat. When meat is heated past 40°C, the proteins begin to denature, unfold. Myosin denatures, collagen violently shrinks. Shrinks? What do you mean by shrink? However, they do not stay unfolded to escape the surrounding heat and water. The. Uh, I mean, come on. This is not done when you eat the meat. This is done after days of aging, right? Like when you order meat that has been cooked at a restaurant and then you go back home and you ask to pack up the rest so that you can eat it later. Then you have to worry about this. And then again it gets physically hard, but this is not something that happens instantaneously. They do stay unfolded for the amount of time that the heat is there, right? Which is why you don't ever get served cold meat. Like when you cut into a juicy piece of steak, nothing has been coagulated yet, right? It's how imagine Paul Saladino or Santa Cruz eating meat, right? They're not going to eat day old meat that's been cold and coagulated. Number 3, protein carbonylation. Boiling meat does not produce the intense carcinogens found in the grill, but it does produce a subtle positive toxin. Yes, okay, protein carbonyls. I looked into the landmark study. It was, let's see, reduce enzymic cleavage. Okay, so the actual study that was linked here, we see the difference in how much they cooked it. Yeah, this says absolutely nothing at all about trypsin not being able to digest it or recognize it. I don't know what studies show that trypsin can no longer recognize it. This seems non-founded on anything. And on top of that, it says they increase by how much again? What the study that you link showed was that they increased to like from 0.5 nanomoles per microgram all the way till 2 to 18 nanomoles per microgram, when a single microgram of protein contains around 6,000 nanomoles of amino acids. So it's definitely very insignificant and negligible. And again, I've seen absolutely no literature saying that trypsin can no longer recognize it. And neither does the landmark study that you cited yourself say that. Number 4, the heme iron valence shift from ferrous to ferric state. Biologically engineered to absorb this exact intact ferrous heme molecule with unparalleled efficiency. B. Denatured hemichrome. Okay, so no. Before we go into the hemichrome shit, first off, there's a lot wrong with this. This is not a point that convinced me at all. There is no literature that says that ferric heme iron can't be consumed. What it says is it's highly insoluble, and that's correct. In a normal pH environment, our stomach acids are not normal pH environments. Our stomach pHs are around 1 to 2, on the pH scale, allowing ferric heme iron to actually go through this HCP1 transporter pathway completely fine. Like there's no this is based on absolutely nothing. This is just uh yeah, this claim is not very strong. And we have the denatured hemichrome. So what does it say? The myoglobin protein violently unfolds. The iron atom is exposed to oxygen and water, causing it to instantly oxidize. So that's the ferric heme iron. It permanently loses an electron. Not permanently. Don't say permanently, because that's not true. There's many mechanisms in which the electron can be gained back. Shifting from a ferrous state to a ferric state, collapsing into a new compound called hemichrome. What collapses into the new compound would be the denatured myoglobin, not the iron itself. But okay, the viability drop, highly insoluble to the human gut. Nope, not true. Less bioavailable than native ferric. Again, yes, but if we take our stomach acids into consideration, it's just not true. The Fenton reaction. During thermal denaturation, a portion of the iron is entirely served from protein. It is entirely served from the protein, becoming free iron. This free iron acts as an aggressive preoxidant. Okay, the free iron shit. Here's the thing. This change from the normal myoglobin to the hemichrome, and from ferrous heme iron to ferric heme iron. This is a process of the myoglobin denaturing. Our stomach acids denature the myoglobin either way. It doesn't matter whether you cook it or you don't. The color does change. Like this is the only thing that's correct here. But again, I'm asking, what's better about cooking meat via heat and denaturing the enzymes via heat as opposed to via pH? This is unfounded. So whether it's a hemichrome or not, it doesn't matter, because it's gonna happen either ways. And on top of that, okay, we have okay then we have the problem of free iron. That's released. We have proteins like transferrin, ferritin, hepcidin. So the free iron thing is also not that big of a deal, because this would happen regardless of whether we cooked the meat or not. Then we go on to the lipid peroxidation and cholesterol oxidation products. Dietary dogma assumes that fats can only oxidize when deep fried. Modern lipid domatics proves this is false. The 100 degrees Celsius of boiling water recombined with oxygens and the newly released free iron catalyst is more than enough to severely damage animal fat. So you have the formation of oxysterols. Oh, okay, yeah, this is true as well. This is but again, it depends on how much. Let's see. Do you have a reference here to say how much exactly? Because I'm pretty sure when you heat at 100 degrees Celsius in boiling water, it's again highly less significant than that of deep frying shit. It's nowhere near the same. And okay, what is this as well? These toxic oxysterols cannot digest them, turn into foam cells that embed into the arterial wall. No, this is if there's chronically high amounts of these oxysterols, and there's an insane amount of cholesterol that's more than what a carnivore diet would even produce in the first place. This is not it's not true. There's no this is extremely exaggerated. The foam cell shit. Absolute okay. Absolute thermal vitamin degradation, and then this is the other part that I definitely should have explained in more detail. Yeah, you cannot recover some of the vitamins even if you drink the resulting broth, which is yeah, why would you do something to your meats just to lower the vitamin C or any vitamins at all? Yeah, so vitamin Z is destroyed, so are some vitamin B's, and there's some other vitamins as well that don't exhibit extremely high levels of loss, but these seem accurate. Vitamins. Okay, it doesn't say how many or how much of the vitamin C, but usually typically around 50, or well, it can be from 30 to 50% depending on how much it's the myoglobin is lost. Vitamin B1, 30 to 50% accurate. B6, 20 to 30% accurate. Yeah, not something you would want, to be honest. Epigenetics. This part, this again, this just like the heme iron part. This part is not found in any. In okay, like does this have a goddamn reference? Because no, this is not true. So okay, let's go through it. The exosome reality. Raw mammalian tissue contain billions of microscope. Okay, we know what exosomes are. They contain RNA. The pathogenic shift of Cook exosomes. For years, scientists assumed it simply destroys exosomes, and yes, that is true. However, a breakthrough in molecular studies published in 2023 and 2024 proved that ultra-dense exosomes actually survive the cooking process. Yeah, but not the digestive process. But the intense heat radically alters their microRNA cargo. Okay, but it's not. This is like you're not saying anything here. Researchers isolated exosomes specifically from cooked meat and fed them to mice via drink. Yeah, and this research that was done, that was given to um that was fed to mice, was isolated exosomes. This is artificial. Yeah, like you're extracting pure isolated exosomes and giving it to mice. That's not how it works in real life. They're trying to fight. They're trying to figure out what the consequences of isolated exosomes are, but it's not like they're doing any actual studies with meat properly. Heat mutates the pristine genetic signaling of raw meat into a pathogenic messenger that actively regulates metabolic dysfunction. Mechanistically, you could make an argument for that, but again, what like okay, this is fairly new, right? You said 2023 and 24. What we have known for most of the years is that yes, we destroy the exosomes, and also we denature the microRNA. This whole notion of the study with mice, I don't think it's accurate, and I don't think it's because everything else you've shown has to do with meat, right? This solely isolates the altered RNA and feeds them to the mice. I don't see how this is.
Okay, just to properly reiterate and emphasize what I was trying to say here. I do acknowledge that within science, conclusions change, perspectives change, and we find new shit all the time. I just don't think that this study is enough to go against what we've known about these altered RNA structures for the most time that we've been studying nutrition, and it's that they can be digested. They can be denatured just as much as the non-altered version of them. So to cite this study of a couple of mice that have been pumped with these synthetically, right? That have been derived from cooked meat, yes, but completely disregarding everything else from the meat, and also pumping amounts that we don't even know if are present in the carnivore diet when cooking meat. It's not enough. And again, they're also mice, right? This is just not conclusive enough, and I don't think this is a strong point or a strong argument.
And then we have the summary. Okay, so in the end, I'm gonna state this again. Cooking meat is not the optimal way to eat. The best way to eat is raw, 100%. Now, I still have my opinion on when you should eat cooked meat.
All right, let me just give my opinion quick and concisely here because I realized that I took a lot of time in the original video. So, raw meat is the most optimal. Yes, there are virtually no carcinogens that are added. There is no loss of vitamins or any nutrients for that matter of fact, which is pretty significant because a lot of them are lost to over 50%. The digestibility is surprisingly higher than what I anticipated with the DIAS results from pigs. But again, even you yourself acknowledge that there's a difference in speed, which signals a difference in effectiveness. So, someone who were to actually get a vagotomy, not like Aajonus, who never confirms any of that, someone who were to actually have low stomach acids, would that be affected? That's my new question. And the other thing is, what about meat that goes bad? When you're about to eat meat and you smell it and it smells funky and you taste it and it tastes like acidic and it doesn't taste like it should. If you were, rich enough to do this, just throw it out, right? Or give it to your dog or whatever. But not everyone's like that, and not everyone, wants to waste food. Me personally, if that happens, and it smells a little bit off, I'll cook it. I'll put it in the pan for a couple minutes. Not to say that that's what I center my diet around. Obviously, I'll have more raw meat than cooked meat, like 90% of the time. But yeah, I think you made some really good points. So, all right, yeah, to the end part of the video now.
It's just yeah. Is it anywhere near the level of damage that eating vegetables is going to give you, or grains, or seeds, or goy slop foods with full of artificial chemicals? Obviously not. So my stance, I'm gonna repeat my stance. It's that raw meat is the most optimal. Cooked meat is inferior. However, I'm not gonna fear monger it, right? I'm gonna say I'm not gonna fear monger it to the level that Aajonus does, but I will say that over the years, a carnivore diet with cooked foods is going to increase the percentage at which you will get cancer and gastrointestinal problems. And it's from all the stuff here. But you know what? I'm gonna say to the person who keeps writing this, for the person who wrote this, give yourself a pat on the back because you went from sending me this piece of shit to this, which is actually full of convincing arguments. This is much better, and this is why I've changed my stance on cooking meat. Yes, absolutely. I hope this just goes to show that I will argue in good faith, and if the arguments are sound and properly debunk the shit that I'm saying, I will change my argument. I will change my stance. But I will not change my stance on Aajonus. These are studies that you're mentioning. These are studies from 28, right? From 2023 to 2024. These are studies this is proper biochemistry. When you go look at Aajonus and his claims, it's nonsensical. It's completely idiotic. He'll go over the cauterizing argument. He'll go over the hormones replace vitamins argument. He'll go over uh, electrical signaling if you eat raw meat argument. He'll go and equate correlation with causation. He doesn't know how to do studies. And also I don't mess with his life story. I think it's completely preposterous. Aajonus cured his autism. How do you cure a genetic cerebral structure? Like, it's not a tiny little problem that you have in your, it's the entire structure of your brain. How do you cure that with raw meat? And I'm pretty sure Aajonus claimed to be non-verbally autistic. He claimed to have a heart attack every single day. Any verifiable proof of that? That he had a heart attack every single day from a young age, all the way until he started eating raw meat. And he never died once. I mean, and he never died. He had lung disease, apparently. Didn't die. So, autism, cancer, which also he got chemotherapy for, and, attributed all the success to curing the cancer to raw meat. And by the way, you can't even, like, verify that he had cancer in the first place. So he had cancer, he had autism, he had lung disease, he had heart problems because he was having a goddamn heart attack every single day. And he survived all the way until he was in his late teens. I'm pretty sure. At what age did he start eating raw meat? Probably his 20s, actually. He survived all the way until his 20s. What are the chances of that actually happening? What are the chances that somebody is ridden, full of disease, and actually makes it until the age where they can do that? Then you go into his whole story about how he even found out that you were supposed to eat raw meat in the first place. He went and studied the Inuits, which we can get into a different day. Because even Face IQ references the Inuits, and it's a little bit sketchy there. But he'll reference the Inuits and how when he went there and he went to study with them, and eventually he like went out and like tried to starve himself. Who is believing this stupidity? He was trying to starve himself to death. When he took a train to wherever the hell he had to be, why didn't he just lie at the train tracks and wait for the train to do its thing? Why did he have to starve himself and put himself through misery? And then he met this ghost or this apparition that told him that raw meat was the solution. So not only are his mechanisms completely wrong, not only are his outcomes completely wrong, well, not completely, because a lot of them do work, but and that's why people revere him as some sort of nutritional god. But a lot of the outcomes are wrong. And on top of that, he sells it with the most outlandish stories ever told. He also, he faked his PhD. So I've seen a lot of other pseudoscientific grifters, right? Typically what will happen is the ones without the PhD will be on the level of Aajonus. For example, Terrence Howard and Billy Carson talking about Anunnakis and shit like that. And, the universal field theory of whatever. It's so easy to debunk them because they're coming from a place that's completely unfounded in reality. And they don't care about keeping their things or keeping their pseudoscience at the very least close to that of what is the main consensus, the main logical consensus. And that's what I saw with Aajonus, right? Aajonus was completely derailed. He didn't know how to do a study. He didn't verify shit. So then, he has a PhD in nutrition. Turns out his PhD is not from Richmond University. His PhD is from Richmond's, plural, university, which is not a university. When you go to the Wayback Machine and you look at Richmond's University, it was a site that you could pay $60 for to get a PhD certificate for doing absolutely nothing. And it says Aajonus Vonderplanitz, which, by the way, is it even his real name? We don't even know. when you look at people who actually have a PhD and will grift and will, make scientific claims that aren't actually aligned with the real science, which is this, you get people like Eric Weinstein or James Tour or the Discovery Institute, the people at the, that type of like pseudoscience where it's much more difficult to, go into and actually dissect. With the Aajonus and his claims, it's like you dissect them and you debunk them in like seconds. So what do I think Aajonus really? So what do I think Aajonus really did? I think he was a grifter. I really do think he was a grifter. I think he was a grifter who, tried getting clients on this radical diet because anything that's radical sells. It's very easy to sell something that's radical. And he just so happened to get lucky on the fact that eating raw foods is better, right? Because he also had his takes on salt. He also had his takes on, vegetable juice. He also had his takes on high meat, which the person writing this, interprets as fermented meat. When in reality, people, all they do is they put meat in a jar and then they'll air it every couple of days, as if that's doing anything to control what bacteria's and what fungi actually ferments it. So yeah, it's a lot of things that he got very wrong, but he's just so happened to get the raw meat part correct. But it's like, you'll see the same effects on vegan pseudoscientists. Vegan pseudoscientists who will say raw veganism and fruitarianism is the solution. It's the radical solution that will destroy any need to go to a hospital or to deal with anything that has to do with medicine. No, it's just a radical way of approaching health. And they are unlucky because they got wrong. And they got unlucky because they're completely wrong. Aajonus just so happened to get lucky for that. So, okay, if you want to make edits of him and like, he's the first dude to ever talk about raw meat, then sure, you can do that. But to reference him whenever you're talking about why raw meat is superior, then you get people saying cooking cauterizes minerals. Then you get that utter stupidity. And then you'll say, oh, just check what Aajonus wrote. Like, my brother, I've checked what Aajonus wrote. It all sucks. And all of this that is now, founded with proper terminology and actual mechanisms has nothing to do with what Aajonus says. Like, yeah, you can link it, but that doesn't mean he was ahead of his time. It just means he said vague shit that somewhat resembles what this has to say, right? Just like a vegan can talk about how spinach and all this other stuff gives you micronutrients, when in reality you go deep into it. And it's true. Turns out they have to be converted, and they're phytonutrients that don't work for shit, right? Which is why I can't stress enough, you have to be founded in real mechanisms that make sense. Aajonus didn't do that. Oh, so you're gonna study from Jewish controlled psyop science? It's like Aajonus also attempted to do the scientific method, just he sucked at it, right? So either pick a lane, right? Either trust your senses like Blood and Raw Meat, who, just purely thinks of things intuitively, right? Like a caveman, who also believes the earth is flat, by the way, because, he walks on a flat surface, or so he perceives it that way, because he's a tiny little ant in a world so large, and he can't use his logic to understand it properly. Or you understand that science is not intuitive, and you have to go beyond from what your physical senses tell you, and you have to think of things. You have to conceptualize things, right? Aajonus tried doing that. He just sucked at it. So, yeah, my stance has been changed, and it's been changed soundly. I think it's good that my stance has changed. I'm still not going to uphold Aajonus, like because none of this makes me want to do so. It's um it's very good that the person that wrote this was able to change my mind, but it just goes to show that you need to look beyond whatever Aajonus writes in his book. This is the way that you research diet and nutrition and longevity. So yeah, that's been it for today. And let me know what you would like to debate on next, what you would like me to review. I would honestly really be interested in delving more into Adonis as a character and as a nutritionist. That would be really cool. Uh, or we can get back to our vaccine debate. We can get into that as well. Yeah, that's it. Peace out.